Welcome to Life, Love, and Good Stuff. Father and daughter chats with David and Sophie Mccallum. Here we discuss seeing and living life through the lens of self-love, how family relationships and life experiences hinder or fuel an authentic, rewarding life. A life filled with conscious, compassionate self-love. And sometimes we just have a good chat. Actor David Mccallum has appeared in theater, film, and television and is a critically acclaimed author. David's most enduring roles include the Russian agent Ilya Kuryakin in The Man from U.N.C.L.E. and Dr. Donald Ducky Mallard on the CBS hit NCIS. Sophie Mccallum was born in New York City where she lives today. Sophie's a certified life coach but specializes in self-love coaching as the self-love peddler. Sophie is an energy leadership master practitioner and strives to start each day with love in her heart for herself and the world around her.
Hello, New York and rest of the world.
Why are you shouting in my ear?
I think we're going to do this whole interview arm in arm. Dad, today,
Yes.
I would like to get some food on your shirt. I got to do some Seinfeld dry cleaning. You know, you ever see him do that? Look, he scratches the stain off and goes, it's dry cleaned. He does a whole bit on how that's all they do at the dry cleaners.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, tell me about my ancestors. Give me the most interesting skinny on our ancestors.
Well, there is a sadness when it comes to my family in that I came to the United States of America in 1961, and I left everybody behind. I left my mother, my father, my uncles, my cousins. I mean, oh, getting caboodle. And the other thing is I went to a school and there was probably 20 in the class, or 15 or whatever it was, at University College School. And I've been very aware with your children and Peter's that they have reunions. And I never had a reunion. I kept in touch with one member of my class. His name was Corette. And the line with Corette was, have you read any good dictionaries lately? Because he was brilliant. You know, he just sort of sat at the back of the class and was way ahead of the teachers and everything. He became a judge. And I met him. He's since, I don't know if
Is he still with us?
I doubt it, but I know his wife died. No, he was sad, naturally. But I didn't keep it on it, so I really lost everybody. But then, once upon a time, I was at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, and my fencing partner was Joan Collins. We were both the same age, and at the ages of 15 and 16, or whatever we were, 16, 17. She was pretty cute and wore a skin-tight jumpsuit. And in her biography, she wrote something about meeting with me and seeing me. We've known each other forever and ever as a result of that. But I don't know why I suddenly bring Joan Collins up.
You're not going to tell me she's my mother, are you?
No,
Just kidding.
she's not right, but there was something very pertinent in the relation to, you know, the past life and then this life and the UK. Oh yeah, they asked me to do This Is Your Life, Joan Collins. And I did it. But what they did with Joan Collins was they dug out all of her relations from the past. And I realized that it was a really good thing that I had left all of those people in Europe, because it just didn't work.
Let me ask you, have you felt as if you have never lived up to your true potential? Do you hear a voice inside telling you that you're destined for more? Are you craving to love yourself more and live a fuller life? Welcome. My name is Sophie, and I'm your personal self-love peddler. I've created a program that allows you to forge into your most authentic life by guiding you on how to fully self-love. When we love ourselves and hold the space needed to learn about ourselves, our internal voice becomes crystal clear. When we start to listen to that voice, we begin to start living the life of our dreams. The path to getting there is paved with self-love. If you're a woman who does not stop to tune into self-care, to listen to yourself, if you ignore all the red flags and all the signs telling you that you are worth more, then you are exactly who this program is meant for. With the Flourish and Fly Learning How to Self-Love program, you will finally find the answers you have been seeking inside of yourself. We know children and even plants grow and learn best when surrounded by love, compassion, and encouragement. Guess what? So do grown-ass women. The women who work with me learn to nurture their true selves by turning their love inward, to grow and learn, to flourish and fly. If you're struggling with self-love and are nodding your head, yes, please click the link below and join me inside of this program. I cannot wait to guide you to flourish and fly. With love.
There was a very famous man who was an interviewer like Johnny Carson, and they dug out his family and did This Is Your Life. And they go, oh, Mary, here comes Maisie. Oh, darling, oh, he's very famous now, and all this. And it was just, excruciating. It was so painful. And I just think if I'd kept in touch and brought them all over here, you can't take away the Atlantic Ocean.
Mm-hmm.
If that didn't exist, I'm actually better off the way it is.
Well, now do you know what they do? Perhaps this is why this came into being, but instead of This Is Your Life, what this generation does is they do what are called roasts.
Oh, yeah.
Where they just bring people on
Well,
who absolutely, from a place of some love, make fun of and point out all of the flaws of the person. And so that takes away the hokiness and just makes it hilarious.
Well, especially when you've got Don Rickles and, all those guys roasting. And Johnny Carson was always there. And who's the fellow? The singer, Italian, what's his name?
Pavarotti?
No. A popular singer, popular songs. Vola, no, Vola. No, that's Madunio. I knew Madunio. He was a friend.
The Italian popular singer?
Jerry Lewis and
Dean Martin.
Dean Martin,
yeah.
Yes, Dean Martin,
Is he still with us?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
He is. I don't know. I seem to have left them all behind, which is okay. I'm still here.
It's funny, we've spoken a lot about cell phones and my children, your grandchildren, and you talk about leaving your cousins behind. And I have my nephew, my son's cousin, in our house every night because of cell phones. My son gets home and the first thing he does is FaceTime with his cousin. And so I hear the two of them. And they had a snow day a couple weeks ago and they had a 8-hour and 24-minute FaceTime call. And so I would imagine even if we moved to China, which we're not going to do, they would still do that every night. And I think about all of the people just in my life without that technology from my childhood. I mean, I didn't have a cell phone until my 30s. But they have that interconnectedness. It's good and bad.
Yeah.
But you never lose anybody.
I'm glad you're not moving to China because they're all coming here with this current administration. It's inevitable.
Back to our family.
Can we please get back to what we were talking about? I have a son, Peter, a son-in-law, Peter, and your first husband was a Peter, even though he's Pierre. So it's a little confusing. But I had an Uncle John and an Auntie Margaret, his wife, and 10 or 15, 20 miles away in the other house, there was an Auntie Margaret and Uncle John.
Both Margarets were married to Johns? So you had Dorman and McCallum.
Well, yeah, Duncan McCallum, John McCallum, and Margaret McCallum lived together. John was interesting because a lot of my family decided to go to Australia when they were born in Scotland, grew up in Scotland, in a small mining town called Kilsyth. And they decided they want to go off to Australia. So William and John went on a boat to Wellington, New Zealand. They went to New Zealand. I'm not sure exactly, but it was around the turn of the century, 1900. And when they got there, John on the trip had developed, is it glaucoma? What is it when you get a film over your eyes?
I have no idea.
Anyway, he developed that and felt he was going blind, and so he stayed on the boat and came back again. I mean, a sort of 12-week round trip, or whatever it was, several months. But when he got back, he went home, and there was John, his brother, married to Margaret, and they said, well, come and stay with us. So his entire life in Dolliter and Kilsyth, my Uncle John, my Uncle Mccallum, Uncle Duncan Mccallum, and Margaret all lived in together. Duncan was a shopkeeper. He had a grocer's store. And Kilsyth has a main street which just rises up from the bottom of the town right up to where the church is, on top of the hill. And halfway up he had his shop, and we would go visit the shop and get ashet pies, which is a little tin thing with a meat pie and pastry on the top. And we'd buy ashet pies and take them home. And then the Cooperative Wholesale Society came in, the whole sort of socialist element, which was great. And they did mortgages and everything else, but they opened up enormous stores that were cheaper than the local stores and put all the little local stores out of business, including Uncle John. Uncle Duncan, it was Duncan's. So that was it. And he retired. They moved out of Kilsyth over to Dolliter, which was just a row of houses that was built when they were building the railway station right across the road. They used to build a tenement block. It was 2 stories high, but Dolliter, I think, was built just to house the people working on the railroad building the station. And when the station was built, there was a golf course over at Cumbernauld, and it was used by people who worked on the golf course. And one of the walks I would do with Uncle John when I was 8, 9, 10, because that's the war starts, World War I. No, two. I get mixed up, too many wars. I would be evacuated up to either Uncle John, the other one, which I'll get to in a minute, or I'd go to my Uncle John Mccallum, Uncle Duncan and Margaret, and John was the adjunct.
What was it like to be a child being evacuated during a world war? What were your emotions at that time?
Well, you know, I had a very good mother who took care of me and fed me and clothed me, so I was perfectly comfortable.
And was she always with you?
At that time, yes. The actual evacuation, she came, yes. When we finally were sent to Scotland, I'm sure Mother came with us, because I remember being in the train with Mother, and there's a picture of it on my office wall out in Long Island. And at night, the entire train was blacked out, and when the German bombers would come over, the train would stop and they would cover up the firebox in the engine, so the German bombers wouldn't be able to see where the train was. And you'd hear the bombs going off in other places, and then the all clear would sound, and then off you went. But the entire train was blacked out practically the whole way.
And was it quiet?
Yeah, I mean, except that steam trains always go all day long. And
I just can't
but
imagine.
you know, it's part of life. I mean,
Right.
It's just in the way today, the whole COVID thing and children and masks and all this nonsense has been put upon them by circumstances, and they know no other way of spending those years.
Mm-hmm.
So it becomes acceptable. The war was acceptable. We would get the Daily Express every day. They were always on the front page was the progress of the war, particularly after D-Day. Once in 1944, once everybody had moved onto the continent of Europe and that war was progressing across, I would follow the maps every single day and see where all the French and the Germans and the British and Montgomery and General Patton and all these people. So that became an interesting thing. It's almost like Gavin and Ali together on the thing. I had the paper and we go to school and talk about, what was happening in Europe.
So you are on this train 11? How old are you?
I have no idea.
We were born in 33.
Well, no, because we did an up and down thing.
So possibly still single digits.
Oh yeah, I was very young. I mean,
So
it's school cap and all that
How
stuff.
do you think the experience of fleeing and being in a train where the lights are off so that you don't get bombed?
But that's not what we were doing. We were going up to live with the other. We lived with the other. Well, we loved more with the other Auntie Margaret because my mother's sister was Margaret. She married a John architect.
Right.
So we had the Abercrombies as they were.
And she lived for a very long time.
And Margaret lived forever. And when she was in the old people's home, the nurses were all thinking, please get her out. Because she moved in and everybody said, she's very good, she's very quiet, she's a registered nurse. But of course, Margaret immediately wanted to run the entire institution and drove everybody crazy. Which your mother, would do the same thing.
I think she's looking forward to doing it. Whenever I tell her she can come live with us, she says, no, thank you. I have retirement homes to run someday. But it's interesting. What I was going to ask you is how that experience affected how you moved ahead and the rest of your upbringing. But it's very interesting because I'm saying, how did it feel to be hovering for your life? And what you're saying is that's not what we were doing. We were traveling to our cousins and that's your mother.
Vacation.
And that's the things that I talk about in my business, and what my passion is how to help people, how to help them with their perception, how to help them enjoy the journey. Even when you're on a train in the time of war, your mother has your mind and your brother Ian's mind on where you're going. And not every mother did, I don't think. And that kind of instinctual caring is something that I have benefited from your mother, from Mummy's mother, from you, from Mom. Boys were going up on the train to visit family, not shush, we might get bombed. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And am I making that up, or does that make sense?
It's like allergies. We didn't have any allergies in those days. Why? Is it because nobody recognized them? Is it because the food and the air was different? Or was it just the fact that people had allergies, just got on with it and didn't talk about them so much?
Well, no, because
And
if
the
you eat a
government did
peanut and your
insist-
throat closes, you're not going to be like, cheerio, I'm just a mere fresh wound.
No,
There are problems now.
There was nothing on any packet anywhere that said produced in a factory where nuts may be hovering somewhere on the floor.
Well, there also wasn't litigation. I mean, it's all connected. And that is something we're not going to digress to.
My point is, it's that as a child, going up to see Margaret, it's a very simple process.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't complicated with any sort of rules or regulations or ideas. It was totally a mother-son relationship. And if you have that very closeness, I mean, another study that I found fascinating, heart attacks. The lowest form, when the study was taken, and I read this a long time ago, the lowest incidence of heart attack in men was in Japan, and the common denominator of all of these men was that they worked and did what they did, but each of them came home and sat down with the whole family and had dinner. And that was the common denominator. It was the unit of the family. And obviously the mother cooking and doing what she does, that, familial bond between everyone was so strong that it kept you very healthy and mentally active. That's something that not quite the same.
Well, and a lot of that, thankfully, as you said, the wife obviously cooked dinner, and now women can make choices,
And I cooked dinner.
and you've cooked every. I mean, my mother can make sandwiches. That's cake. She makes good cake.
And makes the world beautiful.
And she makes the world beautiful. But as roles of who does what in families have blurred, everyone has come up with their own idea of the family bond. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. It's a bigger world. There are a lot more people and there's a lot more influences and they're much more readily accessible.
My point is more the simplicity of how life was.
Yeah.
Okay, the Germans were bombing and we got evacuated. We all got on a train and went north. Even to this day, there's a certain romantic element to the whole thing in my mind. Because we got there, then we'd obviously take a bus or another train out to Stewarton and get off at Stewarton. And John would be there with a car and he'd drive us up to Ailsa Craig. He, being an architect, he built a house right on the top of a little hill. And the house had 1-2 stories and then a turret. You went up, I think. And one was a turret, which was a self-contained flat where his mother lived. And we always thought she was kind of like a wicked witch up there. We didn't know who she was, but she stayed up there. And she was lovely person. But that turret was where all the toys were. He, being a typical architect, the windows were too high for us. So we never saw out. They were up there, the windows. Mm. But down here, we'd take cardboard boxes and make tunnels and build stuff and paint and eat. We took all our food up there. Myself and their children, John and Margaret's children were Eric and Deanne. Mm-hmm. Eric was the same age as I was, and Deanne. Mm-hmm. Oh God, no, Eric's still
Eric's here.
Eric's doing fine. Eric got a chartered accountant and put all his money, I believe, in whiskey, and did very well. And moved to the Channel Islands where he lives, but it's such a remote part of England, it's impossible to get there and almost impossible for him to get out. And with COVID, he can't get out.
But you still talk.
Not
like Gavin and Ollie for 8 hours and 23 minutes.
He writes letters.
That's nice.
And he's wonderfully Eric-like, because he'll talk about, I had band practice last night, had a great time. Music was wonderful. Oh, and did you know that Deanne died? In the next sentence. And then we did this. And sort of, wait, Eric, you can't keep up with your mind the way it's going. So then John and Margaret, were really surrogate parents to me.
During the war.
My mother would be there, but Mother was much of the time, probably most of the time, with her husband David, because he was working for the BBC and doing music for the factories and everywhere. All the musicians went out and did when I was in London, I went with him to various factories, saw the little lunchtime concert and stuff. But everybody worked very, very hard to be part of the war effort. And then you learn things afterwards. Every railing in London was pulled down, every piece of metal, every old pot and pan was all collected for the war effort and thrown away because they didn't want it. They just wanted everybody to feel they were doing something for the war effort.
So, as we wrap up today, can you give me the 3 words you would use to describe your family as a child? The family you grew up in.
I got to be careful because they're all gone.
Yeah, but it's
mostly.
about your memories and your experiences and how they
Oh.
shaped you, the guy I'm talking to.
Oh, well, I can't do it in single words, but all of them taught me about life and living and literature and painting and music. I mean, every single one of them was either an organist or a pianist or very devout, of course, very devout. We would get up every day.
Calvinists.
No, Presbyterian. We would get up.
But I thought you were raised as a Calvinist.
I don't know where you got that from.
You?
John Calvin? No, Presbyterian Church.
Perhaps I made it up.
Well,
but I swear
that's good.
you've said many times you had Calvinist roots. I'm not here to make it up
The
for you.
roots I don't know about. Anyway, that education comes from both sides. John, I remember him. You know, there are a million different little things that you remember about when dinner was over at night, and whatever supper was. It was the three children would say, bags washed, bags dry, bags put away. And the three kids did all that work and put everything away while John sat in the room smoking his St. Bruno pipe and being very happy. And then we'd sit down with John, and once upon a time he was trying to explain to me all about the churches throughout the south coast of England. And he took envelopes and he would draw perpendicular and he would draw, the different churches and things. And he explained how each of the men who designed those churches had a staff that they went with. And you can tell which architect did which church because he used that staff as the base measurement for the roof and the walls and everything. So by doing the calculations, you can work out which one of them did that.
That's amazing.
As the architect. But that's the kind of thing that I got from everybody. Grandpa Dorman
Knowledge.
tried to teach me to, play the fiddle and play the piano. And I would sit with Grandpa Dorman when I was really young at the foot of the organ and play the bass notes, those great pedals. He'd do dum da dum da diddle dum dum da dum da dee da dum da dum da diddle dum 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 da da dum. On that happy note.
On that happy note, thank you.
Hi, this is Sophie Mccallum, and I just wanted to take a minute to thank all of the absolutely exceptional fans of my father's who have been listening to my podcast. I am the Self-Love Peddler. You can find me at selflovepeddler.com. And I work with women, as you know from listening to my podcast, to help them uncover love for themselves so that they can truly get to know themselves, so that they can have these lives that flourish into their wildest dreams. So I didn't originally set out to do a podcast with my dad. I did a podcast with a lot of different people, but the podcast that I did with him, that one episode just resonated with me so much, I just had to keep going. I am so very, very, very blessed to have him in my life and to have my mother in my life. Every day that they are here with me, I know is a gift. And they have really helped me uncover my passion, which is, as I said, helping women uncover their passions. So if you or any loved ones that you know might be interested in working with me, I just launched an amazing course called Flourish and Fly, which is the basics to self-love. It's a super effective, fun, and efficient course that I really enjoyed making. And even when I watched it to make sure everything was in order, I got so much out of it as a viewer. So that was really rewarding to create something and then to profit from it in my proof watching, if you will. I work with women of all ages. You may have granddaughters who you see on social media all the time or on their devices all the time. I know that can be really scary for those of us who don't really know what's going on there. It's a tough time to be a young woman growing up. All women are told that the future is female and that they hold all the cards, yet at the same time they have food, fashion, and diet industries telling them that they're not good enough and that they need to change to be worthy. So it's a tough time. There's a lot of dialogue coming at women from different directions, women of all ages. So just going to promote what I'm offering to the community in case there's a woman in your community, or if you yourself would be interested in checking out my course. I'm really extremely proud of it. Flourish and Fly. It's my calling, getting these things out there. And I really appreciate your help and your encouragement and your support. And for all you male Man from Uncle fans out there, I don't mean to exclude you. Thank you as well. It's a real joy sharing this connection I have with my dad with you. Every time I sit down with him, I learn so much. And sometimes I hear stories that I've heard over and over and over again, and I don't mind it for a minute. And I love that even though I've heard a lot of these stories before, you guys haven't. So it's a real gift to share this. And what's been really fun too is as we go through this process, at first I would come to our recordings with a list of things to discuss. And now when I see my dad, which is very often, we're quite close, he says things like, so I was thinking this would be a good topic, or that would be a good topic. And he's starting to think about this format and this forum that we have together. And he's so sweet. He's always learning, right? And always growing and always trying new things. As many of you know, he's writing his second book right now, and he's all in. And he's also still working full time and flying out to California to work. But he's started to bring topics to the table for us to discuss, such as energy, and that's never been like his forte, his playground, if you will. And it's not that he's taking my lead, it's that he is finding a way to be interested in what interests me. And he knows that through that, he will grow. And we can all learn a lot from him. He's really a special human being. And it's such a pleasure and such a treat for me to be doing this podcast. I hope we do many, 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 many more. And again, this is just a little interruption to say thank you, to plug my job, because I feel so strongly that what I do is providing a service that can help so many, and it brings me so much joy to share it with you. And I'm so glad that I have brought you joy sharing some more of my dad with you. And let's just keep it all going. So thank you. And more to come, I promise. Keep on listening and keep on being your awesome selves. I really appreciate you.
Thank you for spending time with us today. Please hit the subscribe button so you're notified each time a Life, Love, and Good Stuff Father and Daughter Chats with David and Sophie Mccallum podcast drops. Until next time, remember to lead with love.